Going back to that chart that you said, you had
Yeah.
the, red line, I guess, was the debt, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the blue line was the GDP. The GDP.
Yeah, it's in the book too, yeah.
GDP serves principal and interest on the debt. When those two lines diverge enough, you have a breakdown, right?
Right, that's where we are.
What is the role of technology in that, right? Because we get also radically increased productivity with technology and get GDP up. And so we are having some mega
and
innovations.
AI is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And look, and by the way, Doge, by the way, is a generally good thing, and it will help.
This is the Department of Government Efficiency, not the shitcoin.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. The thing that Elon and Vivek originally is out of it now, but the notion of cutting back government expense, this is all good.
Yes.
And it does weaken the sound money thesis a little bit, but I would hasten to say that those who think it's a solution, total solution to the problem, I disagree.
They don't know how big the problem is.
Exactly. The problem's too big.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got 80% of the expenditures are pretty dialed in. And now if we can, if you want to means test Social Security and Medicare, you want to cut back defense spending, there are areas, you want to get the interest rates down, you want to go back to ZERP, because we're spending, the government right now, the interest run rate expense on the debt is $1.4 trillion a year right now. That's a
Which
big
is
number.
like almost half of our direct tax revenues.
Yeah.
It's almost half the government direct tax revenues is spent on interest.
It's a big number.
Yeah. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you're spending $50,000 on credit card interest.
Right.
Basically. Yeah.
Well, and what the government's kind of become, the government has kind of become that family that keeps taking out new credit cards to make the minimum payments on the old ones.
Right. Yes.
And we all know that family, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, there are going to be no more credit cards left. Nobody's going to give you the next one.
Yeah. You're running your own little Ponzi scheme in a way, right?
In a way.
Yeah.
A debt scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Okay. So how does Bitcoin then play into that? If we're going through the sovereign debt crisis, is Bitcoin is just the bomb shelter, basically? Like,
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think, and I think, obviously guys like Fink and Paul Tudor Jones and even Ray Dalio now, who used to be a gold guy, are coming around on it. It's digital gold. It's a better version of gold. It's superior in so many ways. But yeah, I mean, and I think the important point to make, and I'm sure, you've made it in all your other podcasts, is just that sovereign nations are starting to realize it too.
Sure.
Right. I mean, El Salvador got in early. Bhutan is in early. I was in the Middle East at a show last year, and I heard that, from well-connected sources that the Saudis, the UAE, and Oman are all stacking. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Russia was stacking. I don't think China really gets it. I'm not sure they are. But I think that, Jason Lowery's thesis holds that, if you're a country and you want to have reserves, sound money reserves, this is your best choice by far. If you do any kind of objective look at it. And, if it's the case that countries start competing for Bitcoin, we're going to be orders of magnitude higher in terms of future prices.
So obviously your gold bug historically become a Bitcoiner, and it's not either or.
No,
right?
it's not. I'm still both.
Yeah.
I just like Bitcoin more.
And it's funny for me too. Like, I don't know that I was a gold bug, but I definitely was bought into central banking being the main problem in the world. Right. But I thought gold had kind of failed in that front. But physical gold is still incredibly valuable. Like the way I told you this before we recorded, but just to reiterate, I look at it as like there's two broad visions of the future, right? There's one that's characterized, which I would call the ongoing digital age, right? We've got electricity, internet, and AI.
Yeah.
And there's another version of the world where maybe we go back to some dystopian thing. We don't have electricity, internet, AI, right? In that more dystopian world, physical gold is definitely the most dominant money, right?
For a brief period of time,
Yeah, and then in this other world of the ongoing digital age, I think Bitcoin will be dominant. So I just look at it probabilistically and say, give me this percentage gold, that percentage Bitcoin.
I think that's right. I mean, I really hope and pray that the no internet, the dystopian world doesn't come to pass. I don't think it will. But as I've always said, gold is really useful for bribing the border guards because I don't think they're going to have a lightning wallet, and understand how what your Bitcoin is worth. I mean, and silver coins. I got a bunch of silver coins, and I think they're very valuable for just everyday exchange in the sense that a gold coin is extremely valuable. It's hard to do commerce with a gold coin. It's $3,000 for an ounce.
Right.
On the other hand, a silver coin is $30, $40. That's a tank of gas. That's 3 chickens. That's how many pounds of beef, whatever it is. People know what it is. So in terms of bearer money, silver coins are a great choice, and I think everybody should have some.
Yes.
In case there's that brief period of time where all the other forms of money aren't working. But I tend to be very optimistic, Robert. I think we're going to go into a much better world. I think we're going to make a transition to Bitcoin without incredible pain. I think there's going to be a one-time shock to people who've stored their wealth in fiat, and that's going to be unpleasant. You got a big bond portfolio. I think you're gonna be shocked.
Yeah,
sadly, but that is what it is. I think the average if you look at the average person, like take a plumber, they have some savings, they have a mortgage on their house, they do well, they feed themselves. I mean, we go through an enormous monetary thing. Okay, well, their house is going to reprice in the new money. The debt that they had will probably be a lot less valuable. Their savings will probably be a lot less valuable. But if they're young and they know how to fix toilets and do plumbing shit, they're gonna be okay. They're gonna reprice in whatever the new currency is, and people are gonna need that useful skill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not now. If you're a big wealthy guy and you've got all your money in a bond portfolio, I think you could lose a large piece of your wealth.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Where do you think Bitcoin is going to succeed where gold has failed? Or to say it more mildly, like where is Bitcoin sufficiently better than gold? And then further to that question, how do you go about orange pilling gold bugs? I would assume you focus on these areas.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of conferences. Yeah. So Bitcoin's going to succeed because it's better technologically. It's easier to verify. It's got triple entry accounting. Just in every respect. And people say the gold standard failed, and it did, partially based on technology, but also based on politics. They figured out how to create paper gold. Nixon, basically broke the gold standard. He didn't have to, but he did. But Bitcoin is a much better version of gold. It doesn't deflect. It doesn't debase. It will become the superior asset to gold, and gold will have jewelry value. That's going to take a lot of time because there are 8 billion people that understand that gold has value, and there aren't that many people who understand Bitcoin has value. So we're in this transition period between those two extremes. To answer your question, how do I orange pill gold pugs? So I generally encounter a couple of objections, and I go to the New Orleans Gold, what used to be called the New Orleans Gold Show. Now it's the New Orleans Investment Conference, and the guy who runs is a good guy, Brian London, and he's gotten much more open-minded about Bitcoin. He's had Lynn there, he's had me there, he's had Jane Lavish there, even though Peter Schiff goes every year and argues with us vociferously. But I generally, a lot of people get hung up on the physicality of it all, and with those people, I go to the money as a ledger argument. You know what I mean? Look, you can't touch the money in your bank account. It's just some numerals on your computer screen, right? The cash isn't really there. Yeah. Money's a ledger. Always has been a ledger. Before gold even existed, people in caves made marks, which were indicating some kind of debit and credit system of who owed who what. So money doesn't have to be physical. What are the other objections the gold bugs bring up? Well, sometimes they bring up the government's going to kill it, but the ETF kind of swatted that one away. Sometimes they bring up, it's MySpace and Facebook will beat it. Yeah. As we talked about offline, that's kind of not realistic because of the fact that it took so many years to build up this immutable network, and if anyone tried to do it again, it would be very susceptible to a 51% attack. Right. So it's. I'm trying to think what other gold bug arguments
Peter Schiff, I debated him. One he brought up that I thought was interesting and kind of self-contradictory.
Yeah.
He was saying that, you Bitcoiners often talk about reducing counterparty risk, right? It's like, capitalism doesn't work without counterparties. So in fact, you don't need to worry about counterparty risk. And I was like, oh, okay, is that really, Peter? I go, do you hold physical gold?
Yeah.
Like in your house, physical gold in your house? He goes, yeah, of course I do. I said, well, why do you do that? And he's like, in case the counterparty. And I was like, exactly. Like, I'm not saying counterparties, you don't need to divest yourself of all counterparty risk. Of course, we need to have contracts and all these things for capitalism to work. But you also need to have something that is immune to that, right?
Correct.
You hold something physically.
Yeah, the base layer has to be a bearer asset.
Yes.
By definition.
Exactly.
Yeah, and gold is a bearer asset and Bitcoin is a bearer asset.
Yeah. And then he goes straight to, where is the Bitcoin? And he goes straight to the you can't touch it argument, so it's not a bearer asset. I'm like, you're just mistaking.
Yeah, it's a ledger. It's a bearer ledger asset, and it's there, and you either believe in the ledger or you don't. Now, some people say, well, the technology, you know, and the other argument I've heard more recently is the quantum computing argument.
Yeah.
And I've dug into that and I've read as much as I can about it. And, you know, I think it certainly constitutes a risk, but I think it's a very far out risk, like, you know, like decades out.
Yeah.
And I also think that, you know, we could actually apply it to Bitcoin and maybe there'd be a hard fork, you know, where everyone would migrate over to the new thing that solves that problem. So I just don't worry about that. I mean, you know, decades. I mean, I don't have super number of decades left. So, so I think I'm good, but it's, you know, look, there are risks to any choice financially, and everybody knows that. And so, I don't have all my money in Bitcoin. I don't have all my money in gold. I have some of my money in real estate, and I even have a small amount of cash just because I want to be able to take advantage of opportunities. Sure. You know,
so. Yeah, it's all probabilistic.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.